think about identity, our own or those of our friends, we may think of a face or voice that we can recognize, or a unique personality as ways to identify others. But in this information age, there are other factors that identify us. Personal information that serves as a key to open up huge amounts of financial data about us. If you fail to protect personal information, such as social security, driver's license, and credit card numbers, your world can be turned upside down by someone you may have never met and cost you thousands of dollars in a nightmare that may never end. This is the world of identity theft. Identity theft is one of the fastest growing crimes in America and the world. Identity thieves can assume your identity, rob your current financial accounts, open up countless new ones, and leave you with a mountain of debt and in a world of hurt. The good news is that identity theft can be prevented with just a little common sense, but you have to know how to protect yourself.
ID theft is a growing problem. We estimate that there's between 9 and 10 million victims of ID theft every year. That's about 1 out of every 23 American adults. What happens basically is that someone acquires your personal information, especially your social security number, or driver's license, or credit card number, to either open new accounts or abuse existing accounts in your name. So you wind up being held responsible by a creditor for thousands of dollars of charges that someone else racked up.
What we're seeing at the FTC is a substantial increase in the instances of identity theft. We hear the stories. It can range anywhere from somebody charged something to my credit card to somebody committed a crime and I was arrested for it.
They've stolen your good name and they've used it to their gain, and it is a devastating experience for those who are going through it.
If you are a young adult, you are especially vulnerable and more likely than any other age group to be a victim of identity theft.
People who are getting out of high school are entering the demographic most likely to be victimized by identity theft. People who are between 18 and 29 comprise 29% of all the identity theft victims. So it's important to get a handle on how to take precautions to minimize the danger of identity theft.
Young adults really need to be very aware of their personal information. It's something that doesn't necessarily come naturally to anybody, but certainly not to people who are just starting out in life. Making sure that you have your money management, paperwork, all in one place and very, very private, so that your friends, your coworkers, anybody who comes into your kind of private life does not have access to your checkbook and your credit cards and any of your personal information. Make sure that you keep that very private from everybody else.
This is the group that is most subject to targeting in terms of credit card offers, and perhaps this is the group that is the most careless in terms of what happens to those credit card offers.
Identity theft can happen at home, in business, or at work, leaving you vulnerable to huge financial losses.
At Consumer Action, we've heard cases where someone was robbed on the bus, and unfortunately they were carrying their Social Security card with them. So within days, the thief had committed identity theft on top of the robbery, and the person found themselves with thousands of dollars of charges under their name that they were being held responsible for. We've also seen cases where people's friends or members of their own family have taken advantage of someone's private data.
An identity thief is likely to be someone you know, a friend, a roommate, even a family member.
An ex-husband or ex-wife that's trying to get back at their estranged spouse. It might be a parent who has a problem with gambling, drugs, or alcohol that cause financial problems on their own, and this is unfortunately a way they use to solve the financial problems that come about as a result of that. But unfortunately, it sometimes does happen within families.
As quickly as technology is advancing and trying to protect you against identity theft, thieves are faster, they're better, they're stronger in some ways, and they'll always find kind of a way in to be able to access your information.
Ready? What about photo IDs? Aren't they supposed to prevent this kind of fraud? A photo ID is not going to prevent ID theft because photo IDs can be faked.
People might get the idea that an identity fraud could be stopped because someone would double check and make note that this person doesn't look like you, or this obviously isn't you, so they're not going to give him a line of credit, or they're not going to sell this car to him, or whatever. However, what's realistically going to happen is that the identity thief is going to get a driver's license in your name, but with his own picture that's going to look like him, and your identity will be indistinguishable from his or hers. So we can't depend on the point of sale or the company's own safeguards to protect you. Only you can do that. It could be that someone had gone through your trash or your mail and obtained enough of your private information to piece together all they needed to obtain these fraudulent accounts. It could be that someone went online and stole information electronically. A hacker could have gotten into a company's database.
You could be pickpocketed on the bus, on the street, when you're standing in line at the supermarket or at the ATM. They could take your mail from your mailbox. They can, while you're at work, you put your purse away, or at school, and you kind of set it aside, and then they take that. So there are many different ways of getting information. The computer is another way. Never keep your personal financial information on your laptop. It's too easy to steal.
In today's interconnected world, information is power. Many companies are trying to learn more about you, not because they need it for any good reason, but because the information is worth money to them. Guard your personal information and don't give it out just because someone asks for it.
It's happened in the past where companies who gather your own private information don't safeguard it sufficiently, and it winds up falling into the wrong hands. We've seen data aggregators who compile your information for your driver's license, social security number, your credit history, sometimes even your shopping history or rental history, and they've either sold it or given it away to other companies, or even sold it to thieves because they didn't really care who they were selling it to. Once you give companies your private data, you cannot expect them to behave responsibly with it. It just doesn't happen. The way people usually find out that they've become a victim of identity theft is it's often at the worst possible time. They're trying to apply for a car loan or a new credit card, or they're trying to rent an apartment, and they find out that they've been denied because they have a poor credit record, even though they may have had no problems whatsoever with their credit in the past. And an examination of their credit report reveals that someone has opened fraudulent accounts in their name, hasn't paid them, and suddenly you're seen as a deadbeat and as someone who's a great credit risk, even though you've always paid your bills on time.
The number one way that you'll find out is that you go to use your card and you'll find that it's maxed out. Or you get a copy of your credit report and you see accounts that you never opened.
Some people have had just horrendous experiences with identity theft. Just all kinds of charges run up in your name, and then the debt collectors start contacting you, and they don't believe that you're not the one that ran up these charges. This is a nightmare.
I don't have the money. I didn't spend the money.
People spend hours and hours and hours trying to get these sorts of things rectified.
There is a lot of money in identity theft, and identity thieves are very industrious. Thieves can actually go through your garbage, where these dumpster divers can find enough information to steal your identity. Thieves can find old checks, credit card applications, loan applications, and personal financial information. Your mailbox can also be a gold mine for ID thieves.
Make sure that you keep track of your mail. You probably want to check your mail every day, and ideally have it in a locked box rather than a box that's open for anyone to examine or take things out of.
Identity thieves also raid mailboxes for checks and for personal financial information. Get a locked mailbox, especially if mail is delivered some distance from your front door. When you are done with your mail and personal information, you still need to be careful.
Shred all information that comes to you that you don't want to have anybody else access. So for instance, old credit cards, cut them up, shred them, throw them away, burn them, whatever it takes. And the same thing goes for pre-approved credit offers. that contains a tremendous amount of information about you. Same thing goes for tax records, receipts, bank statements, anything that has to do with finance, shred it. It's incredibly important because once it gets into somebody else's hands, they can use it.
Destroy all those pre-approved credit card offers, because if you don't shred them, all someone has to do is pick it up, fill it out, and get a credit card under your name.
There are shredders you can buy that do a good job, but even without a shredder, you can make things hard on a potential ID thief.
To dispose of the trash that contains your personal financial information, hide it under some garbage that you don't think that anybody would actually try and go through, some old coffee grounds and orange peels and that type of thing. Make it as unattractive as possible for thieves to actually do what's called dumpster dive, going through personal documents to get your information.
Sometimes thieves don't have to steal your personal information. Sometimes all they have to do is ask you for it.
There is something that we call phishing. It's not spelled with an F, it's spelled P-H-I-S-H-I-N-G. And what that is when someone, it could be a telemarketer, someone calling you on the phone, or it could be someone who sends you an email, someone who is trying to get your personal information and is pretending to be someone they're not, whether it's your bank or your credit card company or your internet service provider. And they will try to convince you, and they're very good at this, try to convince you that for some reason they need to get additional information from you.
Phishing can work over the phone or through phony emails requesting personal information. Either way, don't fall for this scam.
If somebody calls you and starts asking for your social security number and your mother's maiden name and just other personal information.
No, I don't feel comfortable giving out any of that information. No.
If somebody calls you asking for all that personal information, it would be highly unlikely that it does come from a legitimate financial institution or cell phone company or other legitimate business.
No, not at this time. I'm unable to give you any information.
The most important piece of personal information you need to protect is your social security number. Why is your social security number so important?
If you have the social security number, it's very easy to get things such as your driver's license or where you live or the information of your existing accounts. The social security number is the thing that above all you should always protect. Never carry your social security number, for example, in your wallet. Leave it in a safe place at home. And never have it or your driver's license number printed on your checks or other things that could identify you as the holder of that social security number. The list is very short of people who can legitimately ask for a social security number. The government, your place of work, your bank, and a business with whom you're asking for a line of credit. That's about it. Anyone else who's asking for a social security number is putting you at risk for identity theft.
Often when online or on the phone, companies request information. They ask for birth dates, email addresses, home and office phones, anything else they can think of.
Why do you need my information?
Guard your personal information and don't give it out just because someone asks for it.
I don't feel right handing my social security number out. Who's this again?
Protecting yourself over the phone or online is important. But remember that ID theft is more often than not a low-tech operation.
It's all over the news media. People are generally very afraid about online transactions and that an ID theft may happen because of some kind of internet scam or internet transaction. Here's the reality. You're 6 times more likely to be victimized by identity theft by low-tech means than by any kind of computer-related means. It's usually going to happen when someone goes through your garbage that you didn't shred that had important personal information on it, or someone stole your mail, or someone just robbed you and you happen to have your Social Security in your wallet. It's usually by low-tech means that identity theft happens. The important thing to remember with this situation is to get a police report as quickly as possible after you become aware that you're a victim of identity theft. That police report will assist you in 2 ways. One, of course, it may help the police capture the person who committed the crime, but even more importantly for you on a realistic level, it'll give you some proof when these creditors come after you and challenge your version. And they say, well, how can we know for sure that this story is how you say it is? How can we know for sure that you're not just trying to escape responsibility for these bills? If you show them a police report and something else called an ID theft affidavit, then it will be very convincing to these creditors that you indeed are not the one responsible for these charges. You also want to make sure you go to the credit bureaus. They can assist you in sealing off your credit information from the identity thief to prevent more accounts being opened in the future. Ask for a fraud alert to be placed in your file. That will restrict the identity thief's access to your information and ability to open new accounts. And then we have federal agencies like the Federal Trade Commission, who has an identity theft hotline that deals with hundreds of thousands of these cases every year. They can be of great assistance.
We are getting close to 1 million complaints from victims of identity theft, and that would be individual consumers. And some of those consumers have experienced more than one type of identity theft. So when you're talking about that many consumers, you can see that it really is a huge problem. We have a lot of information on our website, which is www.ftc.gov, that will help you, will explain to you what sorts of things you need to do. We have sample letters that you can send to creditors. We have the phone numbers and the websites for the credit reporting agencies.
Time is the biggest factor in keeping ID theft losses down. That means you have to keep an eye on your financial accounts and move quickly if you see something wrong.
Sometimes it depends on what kind of a card. With a credit card, if someone steals your credit card number and uses it, and you report it within, I believe, 60 days, the most you can be responsible for is $50 of those charges. Everything beyond that will be the responsibility of the credit card company as long as you report it. However, if you're talking about a debit card or an ATM card, you have to report it within the first 2 days after you become aware of the theft or the loss, or else you can be responsible for much greater charges. And if you don't report it within 60 days, the amount of the charges you'll be responsible for is unlimited. So it's important, in particular with debit cards or ATM cards, to report them as lost or stolen immediately. With credit cards, there's more protection.
There are no foolproof defenses for identity theft. But here are 2 good ways to start. 1, don't give out your personal financial data, and 2, monitor your financial records. The first will help keep you out of trouble. The second will help you get out of it if you do. The best way to monitor your financial transactions is by studying your individual credit report. By continuing to monitor your credit report, you'll make sure you are not a victim of identity theft.
It is recommended that everybody receive a copy of their credit report from all 3 of the major credit reporting bureaus annually. And right now, thanks to a new law, you can get one for free from each of the credit bureaus. So make sure you do that, because the information on your credit report is a snapshot as to what has happened over the past years.
There are 3 main credit reporting bureaus. They can give you a good overview of financial transactions done in your name. It's a great place to check for signs of identity theft.
What you really should look for is accounts that you never opened. The next item to focus on is take a look at your balance. It should be accurate. What's reported on your credit report and what your account statement that comes to you every month, they should be pretty much the same. If they're not, that's a sign that there's been some sort of trouble. If there are errors on your account, dispute them immediately. And that's as simple as contacting the credit bureaus and letting them know both by phone and in writing that there is an error on your credit report. Be very specific with what it is. Either you never opened up that particular account or the balance is wrong. It is in the credit bureau's best interest to report accurate information. That's what they're there for. So they don't want to report something that's not true either. So basically you're working together. The credit bureau wants to have a report with your information that's 100% accurate. So do you.
Protecting yourself against ID theft can be pretty easy. Only carry the credit cards that you need and use. Never carry your Social Security card. Memorize it instead. Be aware of your personal items. Know where your wallet is and where your checkbook is at all times.
Monitoring your account statements is also vital, because Somebody could have committed a crime in your name. The first sign has been it shows up on your account statement. So always being aware. To adopt really wonderful financial personal identification habits now so that you can protect yourself in the future is really vital. It's something that everybody can do. It just takes getting into the habit of holding onto your personal financial information, keeping it close to you, and never sharing it with anybody else.
You're just starting out in the world. Make sure your personal records stay personal and keep your good name safe.